This map of Kabbalistic realms will simplify what is happening in spirituality. It contains many deep concepts like God
has no body, so we aren't to imagine him like an old man with a long white beard. I'm Mendel Wilhelm and I'll be narrating this video. I'll be popping in from time to time to clarify certain things. So we're talking about God, that he does not have big muscles, a sword in his left arm, and a glass ball in his right. Not even that he is the wisest of the wise and the greatest of the great. Simply that we cannot comprehend his true self. This is what we call Atzmus, essence, meaning the core of God himself. So since we can't understand or comprehend anything about God, it is for this reason that Kabbalah uses the term Ohr Ein Sof, which means light without end, referring to the infinite energy and greatness of God. It does not refer to God himself. We can only talk about the greatness and power that comes from him, not what he indeed is. As you may notice, we're talking about a lot of deep and complicated concepts in this video, but in this video, we're only going to be mapping out. We're just explaining the levels and stages and the order of them. We'll be explaining them much better and in much greater depth throughout our channel, so make sure to like and subscribe to keep in touch. It is within this powerful expression of godliness called Ohr Ein Sof, which we find the ability for everything to become, the possible and the impossible. It has the power of expressing and not expressing. Regardless, though, of how exactly we understand this concept of the infinite energy, for any of these abilities to come from this land of endless greatness, it is necessary for the infinite ability of not expressing to contract and to conceal to come into action. And so there was a Tzimtzum, a mass contraction, in which all this power and infinite energy was moved to the side. This was done to allow the envisioning of the creation of limited and finite beings. The Kav, which means the line, is a line of Ohr that emerges from the infinite light that was before the Tzimtzum. This Kav is a limited measure of Ohr that is directed straight at creating the basis of all of reality. In other words, the Kav doesn't represent the infinite Ohr that was present before, since now it is limited. Now, since the Kav is limited, it is where we are justified to begin using terms like before, after, higher, or lower, though these descriptions are not to be taken in their literal sense. The Kav has a potential 10 Sefiros within. Other people call it Sefirot. Sefirot are spiritual beings that exist. They will transform the infinite godly light into finite parts that can eventually create physical reality. Now, at first, these Sefiros are very infinite, and then slowly they become more and more limited. There are 3 stages in this process. In their first stage, these Sefiros, which are essentially the potential for everything that exists in our universe and our psyche, are all found within one vessel. In other words, that means they don't have an independent way of expressing themselves. Okay, what is going on over here? I just said that there is this infinite light in one vessel. What's happening? We'll explain this at much greater depth in future videos, but in short, the infinite light goes into something that contains it and makes it more finite and able to create physical things eventually. Those are called vessels, and these are the 3 stages we're talking about right now. Let's get back into it. In their second stage, the 10 Sefiros are placed in 10 separate vessels, thereby giving them the ability to express independently of each other. However, since this is the first stage of vessels, something terrible happened. All the vessels shattered. This happened due to the immense power of the Ohr of the Sefiros. This leaves a realm of spiritual chaos known as Tohu. There is lots to unpack there, but in the third stage of the Sefiros, they are finally assigned to vessels, known as Kalim by the way, that are properly programmed for their use and expression. Finally, a true functioning spiritual world has come into play. But despite all this, the Zohar tells us that God is one and unified with these Sefiros. Imagine this as your body parts, which are all just part of you and serve you. But keep in mind that God has no body. This stage is called Atzilus. In the next 2 minutes of the video, we're going to go through all of the 10 Sefirot one by one and try to explain them as much as we can in that short amount of time. We will have more videos in the future of this channel to explain this at much greater detail. These 10 spheres facilitate the transfer of the infinite godly energy into limited creations. For this to happen, the energy is first minimized from its greatest form, called Keser, into the vessel of Chachma. In our human psyche, we have 10 attributes which are paralleled to these 10 Sephiros. Let's categorize them right now into two separate groups, the intellectual and the emotional. When an idea first enters our mind, we don't fully understand it and grasp it. It's more of like this flash of an idea that falls into us. That is the first level that we just mentioned before. The second level is called Bina, and that is when we process the information and understand it better. The third stage is when and if we understand that this is something which is connected to us personally, and that can develop feelings, emotions. An intellectual idea is contracted from our mind into our feelings. We experience that by feeling personal about certain things and connecting to them on an individual level. The main three emotional components that we use in our day-to-day lives are called Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, which are like internalized emotions which we truly connect with. After Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes come the branches of these emotional Sephiros called Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. All these Sephiros contribute to the process of containing and concealing the infinite energy lower and lower, smaller and smaller. And then finally, the last one, called Malchus, derives its power directly from the very first, which is closest to the infinite, and uses that power to create separate and finite beings. And thus, through a metaphorically thick curtain emerges the world called Beriya, creation. Created beings which are not fully unified with their source and are separate entities for themselves, but they're still spiritual and recognize their source. Beriya has its own set of 10 Sephiros, and the Ohr is diminished more and more throughout the world of Beriya till it comes to the next world called Yetzira. In English, that would be formation. This is still a spiritual world, and there are spiritual beings within it. They're more separate than the world of Beriya above it, but they're not yet physical like we are. Here again, there are the 10 Sephiros, and the Ohr is diminished more and more until finally it comes and creates a physical world of action called Asiya. The universe we all know with atoms, elements, imaginations, and feelings. This is the playing ground and where we fulfill the divine reason for which all of this was created. Each of the created worlds has a set of 10 Sephiros, and so do we as humans. Each of us has a set of 10 Sephiros which we use to operate in our daily lives. To continue this course on the basics of Kabbalah and to understand all these ideas much better, please join us in our next video in this playlist called The Cheat Sheet of the Kabbalistic Cosmos, where we will actually be joined by some leading influencers in the field. Now, you can actually partner with us here at Kabbalah Demystified by clicking on one of those links at the top of the description, either Patreon or buymeacoffee.com, where you will be exposed to some perks like early access and exclusive content. I would like to thank all of our existing members already, and I'd like to thank you for watching this video till the end. See you next time.